Welcome everyone to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy, Will Royal. How you doing today, Will?
The usual, can't complain. We got a nice slate of football just a few hours away. We got football on right now, but we're not going to include those in our week 9 preview. But yeah, I'm ready to get this ball rolling. We don't have any guests tonight because we're lazy with this. Always coming down. But it'll just be another one of me and Bryce and, try to see who can be the one to wear the other team's apparel.
Yeah, and it's looking like right now, I don't even know if we tie what we're going to do, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like it might come down to bowl season and one of us fumble in bowls.
And looking at the slate of games, I think there may only be one game in which we differ from. So
I couldn't tell you which one it is, honestly.
But you want to start off with our first game of the week?
Yeah, let me go with the first one. So we have number 2 Ohio State. They have a beautiful season right now. One of the most dominant teams in the nation at the moment, going against a team that's not that bad. I would say the second tier of the Big Ten in Penn State, number 13. And guess who's the favorite, Will? Just take a wild guess. Ohio. Ohio State with a 14.5-point favorite with future Heisman candidate winner, C.J. Stroud, 133 for 190 with 2,023 yards. And he's predicting the future right now. He got 2,023 yards. Well, 28 touchdowns and 4 interceptions going against Sean Clifford, who's been there for like a decade, just about, with 200. Will, what's up with the notes, my guy?
No, I think I spelled something on me. I thought I spelled something on me
for 187, 1,445 yards this year, and 13 touchdowns in the air, 3 interceptions, 141 yards on the ground, 4 rushing touchdowns. Well, this one is clear-cut favorite. I think I actually picked them to win the national championship at the beginning of the year. Ohio State's going to win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised because this game is usually pretty competitive. I'm pretty sure Penn State is the only other team to beat Ohio State other than Michigan in the past few years. So, yeah, I'm going to go Ohio State. Well,
yeah, Ohio State's pretty cut and dry favorite. ESPN has them as an 80% chance of winning, and they just have a far better weapons for C.J. Stroud as opposed to Sean Clifford. Because receiving core-wise, they have arguably 3 of the best receivers in the country. Jackson Smith and Jigba, even though he's been battling injuries. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. I know I butchered that name. But I think Ohio State's it's gonna be not even close, I think. And they're 14.5-point favorite, but like I mentioned in our last episode, James Franklin has never been known to beat these big teams like Michigan and Ohio State. He's won in the 8 years as a head coach at Penn State. He's won once, and that came back in 2016. So Ohio State's going to come into Happy Valley and just absolutely steamroll Penn State.
Yeah. Well, Penn State had their wideout last week, like a nice big wideout. And honestly, for future football games I want to go visit, I would love to go to a Penn State home game. Wouldn't you, Will?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like the atmosphere there is live. I was looking at the stats, points scored and points allowed. Ohio State's almost averaging 50 points per game, which is crazy this time of this year. And they're only allowing 15 just about. And Penn State's allowing 18.9 and only scoring 33.4. So some would say that Ohio State is clear-cut favorite, probably blow them out. And I'm liking their offense. They have a high-power offense, and their defense is right behind them. But we'll take us to this next game. 2 teams that lost to TCU.
Yep. Kind of like a good battle what we have going on in the Big 12. Number 9, Oklahoma State traveling to the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas, take on 22 ranked Kansas State. ESPN has it as a 55% chance of Oklahoma State to beat Kansas State, but the line is currently at Kansas State -1.5. Spencer Sanders has been having a really good year so far, going over 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns with 8 touchdowns on the ground. But I think the backbone right now, at least for Kansas State, is Adrian Martinez, because he's not doing too well near only about 900 yards, 4 touchdowns, but on the ground he has about almost 600 yards with 9 rushing touchdowns. Put that with Deuce Vaughn, who's been putting up almost 800 yards on the ground. But what we saw last week for TCU, or in the game against TCU, is that they lost because Adrian Martinez was out. So Adrian Martinez is definitely the backbone, the difference maker for this Kansas State, but he is listed as questionable right now, and he could come back, could not. But I'm going to play it safe. I'm taking Oklahoma State in this one. I think it'll
Yeah.
come down. I think the defenses are going to be, Big 12 defense, and there's not going to be much of it. So it's going to be a high-powered, high-scoring game. And I think Oklahoma State takes the edge.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I do think Oklahoma State will win. And I don't know if Adrian Martinez was going to play. Last week it was Will Howard, who had 2 touchdowns with 225 yards in the air. Yeah, Spencer Sanders, he fits perfectly in the Oklahoma State's defense. And what looking at the stats for points allowed and points scored, Oklahoma State they're almost up there with Ohio State with the 44.7 points scored to Kansas State's 28.6. So honestly, I feel like Oklahoma State could blow them out, just overpowering them with offense. But who knows? Because they defense never shows up with them only allowing 28.7, which is a lot for a top 10 team. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Oklahoma State for sure. This next one, me and Will has been hinting to for like I feel like since the beginning of the season that could show who would win the SEC East between 19 Kentucky and number 3 Tennessee. Honestly, I could see Tennessee getting upset, but I don't think they will. I'm gonna go Tennessee this game with them having a -12 favorite for the Vols. And Hendon Hooker has looked like he could also win the Heisman. Also, I feel like the Heisman race is closer than it's ever been most of the years, especially for the past few years, when there's probably like 10 people that can probably win the Heisman this year. Hendon Hooker is 137 for 194 with 2,093 yards, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception, 315 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. To Will Levis, most people say he's probably one of the best QBs coming out for the draft this year. He is 114 for 164 with 1,635 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Tennessee is an 82.9 favorite, 83% favorite for on ESPN what their percentage hoopla, whatever they have. And Tennessee has averaged 50 points this season, but they have allowed 23. I don't know if you want to pick Kentucky to upset Tennessee, but I would like to hear that. Let's get to see who you pick.
Look, as much as I would love to take Kentucky in to beat Tennessee, I don't think it's going to happen. I think I'm taking Tennessee, and I don't think it's going to be. It's going to put Tennessee to the limit because they have Georgia next week. So I think they're going to try to play conservative. They're going to try to take things easy because I think they're looking more ahead to Georgia because the winner of that game is going to win the SC East. I think that's pretty much all but confirmed. ESPN has them as an 83-point favorite. I don't see them, losing this game, or if they do win, it's going to be a post. But I think it's going to be, somewhat of an entertaining game. But I think by the third quarter, Tennessee is just going to take over, and I'm going to take a Tennessee win. As much as I hate that.
All right, well, let's go to this next game.
Yeah, in years past, this game has been an exciting game, but this year it's all gone wrong for Mel Tucker and Michigan State. They have fallen off after starting as a top 10 team, and they are currently sitting as a 22.5 point underdog to fourth ranked Michigan. ESPN has Michigan has a 90% chance of winning, and there's an easy way to see why. You know, JJ McCarthy at quarterback, who's almost has 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, and you have arguably the best running back in the country in Blake Corum, who has 900 yards and 13 touchdowns. I mean, yes, Peyton Thorne has been decent, you know, throwing 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns, but does have 7 interceptions. But again, not going to be close. I think Michigan's going to avenge that loss from last year because Michigan State doesn't have Ken Walker anymore. So Michigan, Paul Bunyan's coming back to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Michigan train this year. Their offense has shown that they are as good as their defense have been for the past few years. And Michigan State, it's pretty sad because they're kind of going outside offensively and defensively, and they're averaging and allowing the same amount of points together with 27.3 points averaging with a 27.1 points allowed to Michigan's 42.7 points averaging and only are allowing 12.1. So I'm definitely going to go with the Wolverines for this one. And JJ McCarthy has looked like he's a pretty steady quarterback in the back of the helm for Michigan. So I'm gonna go with the Wolverines. I know Jake's gonna probably watch this and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with them too," even though I know he doesn't like Michigan. But hey, it is what it is. And whatchamacallit, Jim Harbaugh has turned this program around. I remember a few years ago, people were calling for his job, and now he's looking good as the coach for Michigan. They made a playoff appearance last year, and they could potentially make another playoff appearance this year when it all comes down to Ohio State Michigan game at the end of the year. But let's go to this next game, a game that's near and dear to my heart that we need to avenge Arkansas from our 2020 when they just gave the game to Auburn. I know these teams aren't ranked and it's not a ranked matchup, but we usually have one of our teams in the pick'ems each year. I mean each week. And this game I had to put on it, Will. I feel like you understand because
Yep.
last year we lost. We were a little banged up last year. The year before, they stole the game away from us after Bo Nix snapped the ball, spiked the ball backwards. That was clearly a fumble, and you could clearly see Arkansas recovering the ball. But guess what? The ref blew the dang whistle, and there wasn't a clear recovery of the football. So let me go into stats for this before I just go on a whole Auburn Arkansas rant. Arkansas is a 3.5 point favorite with KJ Jefferson averaging 109 points to not points, 109 to 161 completions with 1,463 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 1 interceptions. And guess what? Auburn does not have the QB that started at the beginning of the season with Zach Calzada or TJ Finley. They have some third string guy named Robbie Ashford, who's 67 for 140 with 1,014 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And that's sounding good for Arkansas. I ain't gonna lie to you, Will. And Arkansas is averaging 32.7 points per game and allowing 32.6, which is well, I wouldn't say it's the best. Our defense has not looked good this year, but our last game we played 2 weeks ago against BYU, our offense has opened up and we are throwing the ball more downfield and not just running the ball the entire game like we usually do. Auburn is averaging 22.3 points with only allowing 28.3. They're literally allowing more points than they score. So you already know who I'm picking, Arkansas, and we will avenge this little small rivalry for the past few years against Auburn. Well, who do you have for this?
So ESPN has it as a 56% chance of Auburn winning this game, but Auburn is just going downhill, and I'm loving every second of it. So I'm taking Arkansas. I think most likely Auburn is going to try to run a physical game, trying to blitz more. And I think Arkansas has that arm strength out of KJ, and I think they're just going to lose the air game, and Arkansas is going to win. I'm just going to keep it short and simple. Arkansas is taking this one.
That's what we like to hear, man. And now we have the college game day game of the week between two HBCU schools, a school that we covered on the first week, Jackson State versus Southern Jaguars in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This game will be taking place in Jackson, Mississippi, at I think it's Veteran Memorial Stadium or something like that.
Yeah.
Mississippi Veteran Memorial Stadium with some would say a dark horse in the Heisman race who could probably get invited. He's been having a great season with Shador Sanders with 209 to 284 attempts in the air with 2,218 yards in the air with 23 touchdowns and 5 interceptions to Southern's quarterback, Bashawn McCray, with 94 for 139 attempts with 1,304 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. For me, I've been watching Jackson State all year. I watch every game that I can watch if it's not during the Arkansas game. I'm gonna go Jackson State. Their offense and defense have been probably the best in the FCS this year. They have started slow at the beginning of the season. Oh, started slow at the beginning of the game in the first half, but when the second half comes and Coach Prime gives his halftime speech, they come out ready to play. And this will be Travis Hunter's second game of the season, well, third game technically, but second game since he came back from the injury. And I can see him getting a lot of yards and having a big game on a national televised game. I'm pretty sure it will be on ESPN 3. Yeah, it will be. But Will, you might be appearing at this game. Tell us what's going on, man.
Yeah, so I may be getting tickets to this game. I don't know yet. I'll know by tomorrow. Um, but it goes without saying, Jackson State is going to win this game. They've been too strong. Um, their fans are one of the best I've seen, at least in HBCU. And I can tell you now, my station's been hyping up this game along with the other stations around Mississippi. So yes, Bashawn McCray has been their best leads in passing and rushing, but it's still Jackson State. Like Deion's been doing such a good job for them. It's not even going to be close. And so I'm taking the Tigers in this one.
Yeah. Hey, Jackson State has been doing a lot of media tours this year. This year, where Deion Sanders was on 60 Minutes last week. I'm pretty sure, and also last week, Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, and Deion were on Good Morning America. So they've been doing pretty good, putting a light on the HBCUs and also playing good on the field. And last week was their homecoming, and they had like a lot of big faces. They had Yellow Beezy, Rick Ross was there, Snoop Dogg.
Shaq was there.
Who else?
Shaq.
Oh yeah, Shaq was there.
Yeah.
Oh, was he? Dang, I missed that.
Yeah, last week was their homecoming, so they had to bring in all the big guns.
Yeah. So, Will, you have a question because we're both Memphis boys, mostly you and me, but you have a question.
Yeah. I know this game was this week. This slate of games is kind of a weaker one compared to most weeks. So I'm gonna end with a question. As we've been seeing the last few weeks, head coach Ryan Silverfield of the Memphis Tigers has been on the hot seat and most likely will be fired after this year. I would be surprised if he wasn't, which kind of sucks. He's Jewish like me, so he did come in on a high. He was part of that team that he was the assistant to Mike Norvell team that took Memphis to the Cotton Bowl a couple years ago. He was the head coach of the Cotton Bowl, in which we got absolutely destroyed by Micah Parsons and Penn State.
Yeah.
But so, and kind of the question surrounding Memphis, at least, is who's going to be your replacement? I already have my candidate lockdown up. We talked about it before, but I just want to hear what you have to think about in terms of who would be the next coach of the Tigers.
Honestly, I don't know. I think if they brought back Fuente, he did start the whole Memphis being ranked and having great teams. That wouldn't be a bad rehire. But other than that, I hadn't really thought about who would fit Memphis perfectly. I feel like it would be a coach on the come up that could stop in Memphis to try to get them back to where they were last year, well, a few years ago before Silverfield. So I actually don't know who should take this job. Will, who do you think?
There have been names floating around, like we've seen Hugh Freeze because he initially started out as a high school coach at Briarcrest in Memphis. Everyone wants Dion to come. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
We don't have the money for that. But I think the most logistical one would be Texas A&M offensive coordinator Daryl Dickey, and here's why. He was Mike Norvell's OC earlier on. He's a Memphis native, I believe, and he went out to take a bigger job with Jimbo at A&M. They're kind of on that struggle, and I think Dickey's at the point of he wants to get a head coaching job, and I think a good spot for him would be to return back to Memphis.
yeah. Hey, that would actually be good. I didn't even know all of that. So yeah. Also, I have something to talk about because college basketball is slowly starting. There's a lot of exhibition games. Tomorrow, Arkansas does play Texas in the new Moody Arena Center, something like that. What are you excited about for college basketball coming up?
So the one of the things that I love most about college basketball is these smaller teams making those big Cinderella runs, like we saw with St. Peter's last year. I actually do follow a lot of the smaller league basketball, and so I like seeing those teams, kind of prosper and try to make their own pass in the tournament. But I mean, obviously it's a very rare chance, and so. But as a Memphis fan, I am kind of on high expectations with Penny because he's always been teasing us with good talent, and we finally have some good talented players. We finally made the tournament for the first time in 8 years this past year before losing to Gonzaga. So I want to see Memphis, kind of on that backtrack. I know we still have Houston and who else is good in the American? I think it's just Houston because they're number 2 in the country right now.
Yeah, they
So,
do have a pretty good team and a
Mark,
pretty good recruiting class coming in.
yeah,
Um,
Marcus Lesser is going to be, contention for player of the year, but Memphis, I don't know. I don't know what's going on this. I just want to see Memphis good again.
yeah, I really get excited about the tournament because I usually have a pretty decent bracket every year. I'm also excited for Arkansas. Have expressed this to you many of the times, Will, with us having a number two recruiting class, and I feel like we recruited a lot of transfers that we really need size wise. I feel like that was our problem last year, and that's why we lost to Duke. We were undersized, but now our shortest player is 6'3", which is crazy to say. I'm pretty sure our average is like 6'6" on our team. And now we have plenty of bigs. We have probably arguably the best player in the country, freshman wise, with Nick Smith Jr. And we have three McDonald's All American with Jordan Walsh and Anthony Black. So I'm really excited about that. I can't wait to talk about it, and I can't wait for the season to start. But
Yeah.
Will, there's another great podcast with you, my guy.
Yep. We did not differ on these choices. I thought we were going to split up between Oklahoma State, Kansas State, but we went the same. So nothing's going to change in our season long challenge. So I guess we have to wait till next week.
Bro, I need to get ahead of you. You've been ahead of me like what
The whole time.
2 or 3 weeks. We've been either even or you were ahead. And I feel like once I get ahead of you, there's no going back for you. I feel like every time we do some of this, ever since like middle school, I always have the luck of beating you every year.
Yeah. Well,
But thank y'all
I
guys
think it
for
comes to an end this year. But
yeah,
you
yeah,
want to sign us off?
we'll see. Well, thank y'all guys for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on the post notifications. And see y'all next week. See you.
Deuces.